Just continue to keep, lead, and guide each and every one of us, and continue to bless our community of Bluffton. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Okay, moving on to up next, the adoption of the minutes. Are there any changes, Mr. Cease?
None unless council has any.
I move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Up next, we got presentation, celebrations, and recognitions. First up will be National Medicine Abuse Awareness Month. Second is going to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have
Sophia and Juliet, can you come up?
Hi. So, yes, I'll introduce you or read this, and then y'all can tell us your side. National Medicine Abuse Awareness Month proclamation. Raise awareness of the dangers of medicine misuse, opioid poisonings that have nearly doubled among children and adolescents. The disbursement of funds from the town's allotment of the opioid settlement funds to the Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth will be dedicated to the social media campaigns targeting youth about the dangers of medicine misuse and the dangers of the counterfeit pills laced with fentanyl. The town of Bluffton joins and supports the efforts of Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth and Teens, Healthy Youth to raise awareness of the dangers of medicine misuse and counterfeit pills laced with fentanyl. I, Larry Toomer, along with Bluffton Town Council, hereby proclaim the month of October to be National Medicine Abuse Awareness Month and encourage all residents to safely dispose of unused or expired medications on Prescription Take Back Day on October 26th. And this is Sophia Blackwell and Juliet Blackwell. Sisters?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great. Welcome. Tell everybody what you got.
My name is Sophia Blackwell, and I'm a member of Teens for Healthy Youth, and I serve.
Can y'all hear? You want to use the microphone?
May I?
Sure.
My name is Sophia Blackwell, and I am a member of Teens for Healthy Youth, and I serve as a Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth summer intern. Mayor Toomer and Council, on behalf of Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth and Teens for Healthy Youth, we thank you for issuing this proclamation proclaimed National Medicine Abuse Awareness Month. Our gratitude is extended to the town for the disbursement of opioid settlement funds to Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth, for the purpose of creating social messages by youth to educate teens about medicine abuse and the dangers of counterfeit pills laced with fentanyl. Thank you for investing in the health and wellness of the youth in our community.
My name is Juliet Blackwell. I am a member of Teens for Healthy Youth, and I served as a summer intern for Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth. I would like to encourage everyone to use Low Country Alliance for Healthy Youth's information card that gives the locations as to where unused medications may be dropped off year-round. One location is the Bluffton Police Department. I also encourage you to pick up a copy of the prescription drop-off card, along with the Dangers of Fentanyl card and a doTERRA bag used to discard unused medications when you leave this evening. These resources are placed on a table outside of the council chambers. Thank you again for supporting our vision to promote positive teen health and wellness.
Thank you. Come up here, let's get a picture. Awesome job. I'm a girl dad.
Got it. Thank you.
Hold on, let me
Thank you
get,
so
hold
much.
on, let me get one for Laura. For Laura Perkins, you get one for Laura. Okay. Thank you, lady.
Thank you.
Next is Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is a worldwide campaign to highlight the importance of awareness, education, and research According to the American Cancer Society, breast cancer is the second most common cancer among women. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is an opportunity to unite all citizens in our community to prevent breast cancer deaths through increased education and screening. We recognize the survivors, those currently battling the disease, friends and families of a diagnosed patient, and applaud the efforts of our medical professionals and researchers working to find a cure. I, Mayor Larry Toomer, along with Bluffton Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October to be Breast Cancer. During public comment, each speaker is limited to a total of 3 minutes per meeting, regardless of whether the person is speaking on their own behalf or as an agent for others. Meeting attendees may not donate, transfer, yield, or give all or any portion of their speaking time to another person. All public comments are to be conducted from the podium and directed to the town council as a whole and not to any member thereof. All speakers shall be mindful and respectful of those participating in or present at the meeting. Speakers shall be expected to be civil in their language and shall refrain from comment or behavior that involves disorderly speech or action. Name-calling, personal attacks, threats, obscene or indecent remarks, and or disruptive actions. All speakers shall confine their comments to the issues under the jurisdiction of town council. Speakers shall not use the public comment period to promote or advertise awards, businesses, service goods, or candidates for public office. Any speaker that violates these rules and protocols for public comment may be ruled out of order by the presiding officer. Any person whose comments have been ruled out of order shall immediately cease and desist from further improper comments. The refusal of an individual to desist from further improper comments may subject the individual to removal from the meeting and or a citation under section 2-49 of the Bluffton Town Code. So up first we have Ginger.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Ginger Marshall. I'm a paramedic with Beaufort County EMS, and I've come here tonight just to give you some information about the third annual Beaufort County First Responder Food Program. What that is about 3 years ago, when we were looking at what was going on in our community, we saw that there were multiple agencies that were servicing the community, but between Christmas and New Year's, their food markets were running dry of goods. We have a lot of individuals, unfortunately, who have food insecurities, and what that means is that they are having to make decisions on whether to purchase medicine or purchase food for their tables. And lots of times as EMS professionals, we see that they are choosing food over medications that help them with whatever medical conditions they have going on. So I spoke with my counterparts in the EMS department, fire department, and the local police departments, and we decided to come together and do a food drive each year to keep 2 agencies in Beaufort County stocked, hopefully through the new year. So that would be Bluffton Self-Help and Help of Beaufort. So starting November 1st, we're going to be kicking off our 3rd annual food drive. And for those of you who may not be familiar, I'm sure you are with Bluffton Self-Help, but it was created 35 years ago by Ida Martin, and they service local residents in Beaufort County as well as neighboring counties. And I have been told that they are currently serving about 500 families a month, and that's about 40,000 to 50,000 pounds of food going out. And Help of Beaufort, they've also been in existence since the early 1970s, and their numbers are going up. They've gone up 18% as of right now. And that does not take into account the recent natural disasters that we've had in our area, or the more than likely a little bit of a drop in their donations due to those who are wanting to help the survivors or those affected by Hurricane Tropical Storm Helene. So we're coming together and kicking off November 1st to have a non-perishable food drive. We request just any advertisement that you guys might be able to do when you go out to the community, get the word out to your constituents, to your neighbors, let them know that we are having this going on, and we'll be collecting starting November 1st until, I believe it's December 8th. And we're looking for non-perishable, in-date items. We have several drop-off locations in the Bluffton community. There's one that will be here at Town Hall. There's one that's going to be at the front lobby of the police department. And just to give you an idea, last year we collected about 1,500 pounds of food, and that was our second year in existence. So we're hoping to do just as well. We changed the start date just to let the donations go to areas that are really in need right now, which were mentioned earlier. But I thank you for your time. You should have a flyer that was in your packet. And does anyone have any questions about the program or what our goals are right now?
I'd just like to say thank you for your efforts of making this happen. I think it's a very worthy cause, and hopefully we can do 3,000 pounds this year instead of 1,500.
We would love that.
As long as this storm doesn't need it.
We're not going to say anything about that. All right. Thank you, guys, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, up next we'll have Miss Sharon Brown.
I love the way you call my name.
Good evening, Town Council. Sharon Brown. I'm at 163 Buck Island Road. So I am here to oppose the Town Council in moving forward and including $170,000 in the budget to purchase flock camera system and to maintain it $76,000 annually. I am afraid of the thought that someone could be gathering information that could be used against people at a later time. These flock cameras will be used by the Bluffton Police Department to capture and analyze license plate numbers of our citizens passing vehicles, allowing tracking the citizens of Bluffton by use of an unmanned technologized recognition camera. Our police department should not be granted the okay to purchase such a dangerous and powerful unregulated license plate recognition cameras and device. Why? In 2020, the Bluffton, there was a stat ran, and 70% of the black population, which is 33%, 319 arrests made by the Bluffton Police Department. And all of these were African Americans. These flock safety cameras will be capturing our vehicle license plates as we enter a community, on the highway, or any area in Bluffton. This device will act as a tracking device of anyone's whereabouts, which intrudes on the citizens of Bluffton privacy. These cameras will be tracking individual movements without their consent, potentially logging where they live, work, or visit. My concerns are that this proposed flock system may cause more harm than the purpose it is supposed to be utilized, especially to minorities. We do not need this type of over-top policing. Furthermore, without strict guidelines, my concern is that the risk that the data could be misused for inappropriate surveillance activities in communities of choice. Would these camera systems be designed to take a picture of license plates, check the plates against local hot lists, and then flush the data if there are no hits? They're probably not. They probably won't do that. So why does the police department need to have such a device that would be monitoring residents' vehicle movement, which clearly constitutes an invasion of privacy? Our crime rate is not that egregious that we need to be spending our tax dollars on this type of invasive device. What we need is for the police department to focus on creating a department of community policing that will get to know the citizens, establish a relationship with all communities, not just the affluent ones. Let the people be the police department flock eyes and ears. All that costs is time and effort, Chief. And that's why I'm continually asking for a meeting. The community would like to have a meeting with the chief of police and especially our town manager, because I want to know why we can't get this done after emailing 5 or 6 times. So thank you so much for your time. God bless you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Miss Sable Brown.
Hello, my name is Sable Brown. I am a native of Bluffton, 163 Buck Island Road, Buck Island. Like I said, I'm here to also speak about the flock cameras. I do not believe that we need the police department being Big Brother watching over its citizens with devices that can cause more harm than good. These flock cameras have pros and cons on the validity of them, and the cons outweigh the pros. Our town does not need technology invading on our privacy every corner we turn. I'm asking the town council to not vote to include the purchase of flock cameras for $170,000 of the citizens of Bluffton tax dollars plus a $74,000 a year upkeep. We can spend that money on preventative programs within the police department. We can also use that money to train our police department to foster positive interactions within communities, especially minority communities. The police department can implement programs that focus on cultural competency, implicit bias awareness, community engagement, active listening skills, de-escalation techniques, and collaboration with community leaders. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, move on to communications from mayor and council. I'll start with you, Ms. Burton.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to all of our town employees, from Stephen and the chief, and everyone who worked so many hours and worked so hard during Helene. I know that was a lot, and so I just wanted to thank you publicly. Also want to just say praying for all those in the path of Milton, and thankful that right now we look like we are going to be okay from this.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton.
Good evening. I also want to give some kudos to those who put their time and energy in trying to make sure that Bluffton resident got the attention they needed when we lost power or when there were trees down. And I want to encourage the staff as well as our leaders to be a little bit more patient and considerate of those who are suffering from the coming storm that we may encounter in the next couple of days. That trying to work with the power companies or even the internet companies so we can have the quality of life restored as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier?
I too would like to echo the sentiments in terms of commending staff and all those who are boots on the ground in the response with the aftermath we had with Hurricane Helene and its effects here. I would also like to encourage those who did reach out in concerns of where they felt there may have been lack of communication or there are things that we could have done better, that we're always receptive of any feedback, constructive criticism coming from our residents in ways that we can improve and be better prepared when it comes to storms that may come our way. Would also, since this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, just give a tidbit to those who are here and watching. If there are any women who are in need of breast cancer screening services that are without insurance, do not allow that to be a deterrent. St. Joseph's Candler does have a program where they provide free screening for breast cancer, as well as free diagnostic mammograms and MRI and image-guided breast biopsies. And you just need to contact them, and they will take your information and get you scheduled for anyone needing that. And also, Stephen, if we could, I know Ms. Brown has come several months asking for a meeting. If we could meet with her at some time to see how to set up or the feasibility of whatever she's requesting to have a conversation about. That's it for me. Thank you.
Mr. Wood?
Yes, I want to, excuse me, ditto what all of my colleagues have had to say. God blessed us again. There was no loss of life. To my knowledge, there wasn't any serious injury. We may have lost some food, but we kept our families intact, and for that I'm grateful. And the folks that are going to experience what's about to happen in Florida are not going to be near as fortunate as we are. I'm well acclimated to that part of Florida because my family lives south of Orlando. I do want to shout out to the staff. Man, they worked hard, all of them, the police department, public works, the people behind the scenes and management and supervisory roles. You know, you don't see them all the time, but they're still grinding and working to try to make this town as good and efficient as we can. And to your comments, I just want to remind people on healthcare needs that there is a Bluffton Jasper volunteer in medicine in this town, and we have a clinic in Jasper County as well. And if you are income qualified, you can get free medical care. We have some good doctors there, and we will send you to other places to get the help you need. All you need to do is just come there and fill out an application, and we don't ask a lot of questions. We just want to make sure that you're in financial need and you will get the help that you need. So thank you. And last thing is, when these storms do hit, be patient. All of us are, all of us were probably without power for a while, and we can't make the power companies move at the speed we wish they could, but they do the best they can. That is their goal, is to get the lights on as fast as possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. I want to ditto same thing that everyone said here, and especially our staff. There was some comments and stuff, about maybe we weren't prepared for that last one. No one was prepared for that surprise storm that we got from Helene. Town manager and I, we were on the phone calls with the EOC, which includes Paris Island, Beaufort Air Station, Hilton Head, Hardyville, Port Royal, City of Beaufort. None of us got any information that it was going to be anything other than a 30 to 35 mile an hour sustained winds with a possible 50 to 60 mile an hour gust. That just goes to prove that you never know. It's no blame. Our crews were on top of things as soon as before daylight, actually. And I can't thank them enough. I'm an outside guy, and I love those guys so much for what they do and all the hard work that they do. And a lot of that work's dangerous as well, just like the linemen and the people that are out there. So when we don't have power, we just have to thank God for what we do have, and just be patient and understanding that it's going to get better. As for the storm that we are waiting for now, if you want to put it that way, we were on with the EOC at 4 o'clock just an hour or so ago, and at this time we're expecting 25 to 30 mile an hour winds, possible a little higher gust, possibly flooding or likelihood of flooding on high tide in low-lying areas, and we all know where those are. So nothing super to worry about at this point, but like the last one, things can change. So we'll be updating as soon as we get some science, some information that is worthy of sharing. We will be putting it out there on social media and every other way that we possibly can. So that's it for me, and we'll move on to, we have a couple of workshop agenda items. The first one's going to be consideration and direction of amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances. Mr. Kevin Eichert. And I guess I'll read these, or you can do that. There's 4 or 5 different ones under this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. We are here for a couple of items this evening, just looking for some direction from Town Council, specifically dealing with our stormwater design manual. We have some items from business license as well for mobile vending and short-term rentals, so I'm going to go through those. But just to kind of tie this all together, we talk about our mission statement all the time, and I wanted to provide this, that, we take care of our citizens, the town, each other, by continuously making our community and organization better. So this is an opportunity for us to look back at some of the ordinances that we have in place right now and how we can continue to make those better. So just wanted to tie that back in to what we're doing. So we have 3 items that we're going to go over. The first one is dealing with the design manual. We're looking to get some clarifications on some stormwater practices, enforcement issues, better site design, and we have some Scrivener errors that we're going to focus on. The next one is dealing with the mobile vending ordinance, so aligning some of the items that we have in place, a couple of considerations, and same thing with the short-term rental. So specifically, we'll start with the stormwater design manual. So just to get you in the right frame of mind, So whenever we talk about MS4, so you're like, well, what is MS4? MS4 is a municipal separate stormwater sewer system. It's a publicly conveyed system of ditches, catch basins, street inlets, gutters, storm drains that are all designed to collect and convey stormwater and discharge the waters to the state. So just wanted to get everyone in the right mindset that we're talking about stormwater. That's the blue here and not the brown here. So the design manual. So we have the Unified Development Ordinances. That's our rules and regulations that we have in place. And that's through an ordinance that we would make changes to it. The design manual itself is actually an appendix to the UDO. So this would actually be through a resolution. So what this is the document that staff uses to make sure that people are in compliance with all of our codes that we have. Now, engineers on the private side will actually use this document in order to, whenever they're designing their sites for dealing with stormwater issues. And then we have numerous checklists that are a part of this document that staff uses in order to make sure that they are in compliance with all this. So just so you can see, I brought a copy of it right here. So I know that everyone's had an opportunity to read through this over the years. So I have as well, and it's a great way to fall asleep if you have insomnia. So a couple of items I want to discuss. The first one was talk about clarifications for stormwater practices. We adopted this ordinance back in 2021, so it's been a total of 3 years. And like with anything, this is a living document, and we've realized that there's some changes that need to be made. So we gave enough time in order to get multiple projects through the entire system in order to see if there's any changes that are needing to be made, that we can then identify those and make sure that we're collecting that information. So over the past 3 years, we've been collecting this information. What we're realizing is that we need to get the manual to align with what's happening in the field. So that's one of the big reasons that we're here. One of the big top ones is we call this 10% analysis. What this does is it gives us the ability to have flexibility, and I'm not going to get into the engineering terms behind all of this, but what it is, in essence, it's like a variance, and it gives that little bit of gray area that's needed in order to, if you have an item that you can't meet completely in this code, it gives that flexibility in order to adjust it, noting that the overall watershed, the goal is to protect the overall watershed. So you might have some variations in a single site design that you need to adjust, and that this gives us that flexibility to do that. The other one is looking to be consistent with Beaufort County's collections. Again, remember, Beaufort County adopted this same manual, so we are all working in conjunction. One of the items is dealing with the ponds themselves and how we calculate the stormwater volumes, and it's making sure that that's being accounted for. The other one is dealing with some with bioretention or rain gardens, as they're referred to, and dealing with they're required right now to be elevated by 6 inches, so we're looking for making changes to that as well. Again, I'm trying to keep this very high level, and you'll see later on in the presentation that this will go through WAPAC and Planning Commission and then come back to you. Other examples include enforcement. We are looking to make sure that we can enforce some of the provisions that we have in place. Specifically, we talk about those pre-MS4 communities. That's your Hampton Hall and the Farm are 2 great examples. And our goal is to make sure that we can go in there and be able to enforce the rules, the state rules, and make sure that they are maintaining their ponds. Now, what we had here is that we've never enforced it before, but it gives us an opportunity to enforce the rules as the acting agency reviewing this. So our goal is that we reach out to all communities, make them submit their maintenance inspection reports to us, and that's where they go in and typically, on a yearly basis, they'll go in to check their ponds, so to speak, to make sure that they are functioning properly. Because if your pond does not function properly, then it just doesn't work, and it's just a big hole in the ground. So you have to maintain them. That's one of the most important things. So if it's not provided, what we'll do is we can go out and actually do the inspection. That's our goal, is to make sure that these things are functioning properly. And we would use our current checklists that are in this document in order to make sure that they are in compliance. If we can figure out that there are problems, our goal always is to work with the community in order to make sure that they know what they need to do to make the changes to improve it so it's functioning properly. Now, if they don't make the changes, what happens? That's where we talk about enforcement. So obviously, our goal is always compliance. It's always compliance. It's not necessarily for the enforcement aspect of it, but we would have the provisions that we have in the Unified Development Ordinance right now that we could go in and enforce the rules, be a fine if necessary. But the goal is always to make sure that we're getting these communities into compliance. Yes, sir.
I need clarity on that. I've asked these questions before of staff, and the impression I had was after the development of the new standard, the stormwater standard, that applied to enforcement, but prior to that, nothing really did. Now you're saying that we're going to be able to go in and do enforcement?
That's yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to be clear of that.
I'm not clear though. If we couldn't enforce it before, what gives us the authority to enforce it now?
What it's. Can I get back to you on that one?
Sir?
Yep.
Kevin, you said that Hampton Hall and the farm are not required to provide inspections currently.
Correct.
However, they do provide them.
Yes, sir. They do.
So
They do
take
that.
as a positive.
That is a positive. Absolutely. That just that goes to show that there's two communities that they realize that they've had issues obviously in the past, and that our stormwater team works with them in order to make sure that they are making necessary improvements and maintenance to their ponds.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. A couple other items that we have is dealing with actual what we call better site design principles. So our goal is to the goal is to always keep water on site, both to retain it, to clean it before it's either discharged at an appropriate rate or is absorbed into the ground. We're trying to make sure that we're not having clear cutting and trying to keep as many trees as possible. So what we're now including is a credit through the calculation process in order to reduce down those volume requirements. Again, this is where it starts to get a little technical. We're able to get a copy of this image right here to help to kind of explain where if you had, when we say D soils are not good soils. So think of the grading scale A through D. D is a bad type of soil. It doesn't percolate like A soils. So here in this example, again, if you just look at the number itself, that over 18,000 cubic foot, that's the size that's needed for the pond. If you were to clear cut the entire site, you pack the ground, and you have the managed turf, you can see how big of a pond you're required. By you having open space where it says Plan B, you're converting those open spaces. You notice how the size of that pond is a little bit smaller. So it's just the volume of it is smaller. And then obviously if you have conservation areas, and that's areas that are just not touched at all, then you can reduce the size of that pond. So by saving areas of not touching it when you're developing the site, you actually get a credit to be able to have a smaller pond. So it is a good thing, and it works out obviously to make sure that we have more natural land that's being used and saved versus just clear cutting an entire site and then changing the entire hydrology of it.
Kevin.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to get off the reservation here. I'm just, and if I'm too far out, reel me back in.
Okay.
But this is an excellent example, clear, and I understand it. What we have learned since the last episode of flooding, a lot of the systems were built on a 25-year storm. And then, of course, we talk about a 100-year storm, but now the 100-year storms are more frequent than they used to be. So in your example, does that not play into this discussion based on what period of years, I'm looking at you too, but what period of storm activity you're thinking, like a 25-year or 100-year? Seems to me that I understand the logic of open space conservation and trees, which actually absorb the level of water on the ground. But if you still get hit with a 100-year storm or something greater, I wonder if that doesn't need to still have the pond somewhat larger, I guess is my question.
That's a great question. If you don't mind, I would like to work on that to be able to answer that one. I'm not 100% accurate in what I could say to you, so let me work on that.
Sure, absolutely.
And then what we can do is, we'll go back, make sure that we're collecting all these questions, and making sure that when we send this to WAPAC as well as to Planning Commission, that we're addressing them. And I also, obviously, offline, I can work on getting answers to you. So, oh, here we go.
I'm in Dream right now, the MS4 program manager. So there's two different big stormwater requirements. You have the stormwater retention volume, and then there's the detention requirements. The detention is up to the 100-year. So
Into the mic a little bit, hon. Thank
so we're strictly looking at just the water quality piece right now, if you will.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
So yes, to your point, that they're still, if they detain up to the 100-year, it still may mean they need a bigger pond to hold all that water. But this offers a credit towards water quality volume. It's not always the case that a pond has to be bigger. You could use bioretention and different other practices to detain up to that 100-year. But yeah, this is just focusing on water quality requirements.
Thank you.
One quick question. This example here is pretty cool. I like it. Does this pertain to commercial developments as well as residential developments?
Yes, all development. All development is required to meet the SoLoco design guidelines.
On that, Kevin, since all are required to meet that compliance, I know you mentioned with the MS4 that residential is required to submit their maintenance plan. Currently, I know commercial is not. I'm assuming that's a voluntary practice also. Is that something, as we're workshopping this, that commercial developments will be required to do as well, or commercial property owners will be required to do?
Yes, I'm getting the nod, yes. I was going to answer yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Kevin?
Okay.
A couple meetings ago, I asked a question where, why couldn't we do a release on the pond when we know a storm is coming? And most of the ponds that I think was referred to at that time didn't have the ability to release their water. If we're going to be supervising or making sure that we can monitor others' maintenance problems, can we also look into requiring them to find a solution to release their water, bring their pond down to a minimum so that they can obtain more water when we do have these floods?
I'm writing that one down. That's something that we'll do the research on, and we can. She's already tapping me on the shoulder.
So because they are private communities, we as the town cannot require them to fix things that were designed to not meet current standards, right? We can't make them retrofit everything to fit them.
That's what I thought.
So what we can do is work with HOAs and even property management groups that, every community kind of has their own engineer of record, right? So we can work with that engineer of record to come up with alternatives. If that is a retrofit, sure. But to your point, no, there are very few communities that actually have, they're called weirs, and you can change the slats out and actually change the water elevation based on that. So it would have to be a conversation with those communities and their engineers and them giving us their design idea and then the town going through the permit process to review it and accept it.
Thank you.
before you leave. So, we did a pilot program probably 7, 8 years ago. I can't remember whether it was Hampton Hall or Hampton Lake, and we went out and we tried to figure out a way to disperse some of their water. You remember that program?
Pine Ridge.
Okay, Pine Ridge, thank you.
Mhm.
Did that program work?
It's a really sore subject. So we had issues with the maintenance of the pumps themselves, of the irrigation system. It's on our dream list, if you will, of projects to get back up and running so that we can really be able to utilize that as a true pilot project.
The reason I asked the question is these ponds that can't be lowered, and the example that just took place in Hampton Hall with, copious amounts of rain in a short amount of time. Again, there's obviously methods that they can go, they'd have to spend the money, they'd have to implement it, some like drain fields more or less, for lack of a better term, to put piping out somewhere to get rid of some of the water. These are possibilities, are they not?
Again, it would all be based on what their engineer presented to us, and
Right.
then we would just be reviewing it just like any other development plan that came forth to us, reviewing it against state and local and federal standards.
Right,
To
okay,
make sure it's okay.
thank you.
I think most of them are built where the outfall is a certain approved level. Okay, so in order to lower that, there's only 2 ways to do it. Dig the outfall out to the level that you would want to lower it and put a valve system, or pump the water into the existing outfall, because water won't go uphill without some help.
Right. I mean, without.
The ones that are already there now, I think that's the problem, is where the pipe, the outfalls are, is where they can come down to that level, but that's as low as they can go.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be retrofitting an existing structure, that's correct. There are other methodologies, but that's the most straightforward of them.
And to Councilman Hamilton's original point or question about the capability of lowering the pond, in talking with some of staff from Stormwater, was saying that that's not always the most advantageous thing to do, because that water still has to have somewhere to go. And depending on the volume of water we're expected to get, it's almost like you're creating extra work, and essentially it's not even putting a Band-Aid on the situation itself. So there are better solutions to seek out in terms of how are other places impacted by the same conditions that we are, how are they better doing that?
Ms. Berger, do you have a question?
All right,
Proceed, sir.
thank you. I know you guys can all read this information right here.
Oh, yeah.
This is the calculator. This is what the engineers use in order to determine that volume. So I just wanted to put this up here just so you guys just had an idea to see as our staff are reviewing plans. They work with these engineers to make sure that they're getting all the appropriate information in there, and that actually then goes through a large equation, and it spits out the actual volume. So we talk about those credits. So that's something that we make changes to this calculation to allow for, depending on what you do for that water quality, to reduce the size of those ponds. So
Is this print this small because they don't want anybody to be able to see it?
No, this is this small just for this screen right now. So obviously it's an electronic document that they use. But I just wanted to put that up there, just a representation, just so you guys can see that it's not arbitrary. It is actually put through an equation in order to determine what is appropriate. So. The last item that we had specifically dealing with stormwater, there's a lot of Scribner's errors, and I just did a quick screenshot. So when we're referring to Scribner's errors or just modifications, this is what we're referring to. It's not necessarily dealing with the regulatory side of things, but just making sure that we're going through and catching previous errors and being able to adjust them accordingly. So with that, does Town Council want to move forward with the proposed amendments to the stormwater design guideline? And then those items that we've just talked about. If there's anything additional, I've been taking some of your questions here. What we'll do is we'll make sure that we will include this as we're moving forward. And if there's any other items that you may have, even after this evening, by all means, please feel free to reach out to me, and we're happy to include that in our research. So if you decide to move forward with it from a process standpoint, we're going to bring this in front of the Watershed Action Plan Advisory Committee, WAPAC, at their October 24th meeting, get information from them as well as the Planning Commission. While it's not necessarily a requirement, we are going to bring this to the Planning Commission as a workshop in order for them to provide input. Also, it gives another opportunity to have this document in a public setting for people to be able to provide additional comments. That's the ultimate goal. I know that I've talked with a couple of engineers, and they have been on board. We actually have one of them here from Thompson Hutton, just to be here, to be able to see what's happening. They've been working very closely with our staff to align this ordinance to make sure that it works. And like I started with, for 3 years, we've been collecting this information. We've been working with them, and obviously the ultimate goal is to protect our waterways, to clean the water, and that we are working in conjunction together in order to do that. So, if you have any questions, any additional questions, I think that we had quite a bit of information from you guys, and what we'll do is we'll go back and make sure that we include that as we move forward.
Thank you.
Any questions from council?
Yeah, I do. I have another question or comment. I like the direction you're going in, Kevin, in terms of incentivizing those who are developing to, adopt practices that are going to, be great for the environment. I would like to admonish, like, as we are moving forward with this, you said it's going through WAPAC and Planning Commission. We are aware that there are some legalities going on in terms of, protections being removed from wetlands and other things. I would like to admonish those who are working on behalf of Bluffton that we are also being considerate that while certain things, might be being pushed through legislation, that we're still putting the environment forward and knowing that nothing should trump what we're actually seeing is being devastating to the environment, and what we know will be protective of it. My question also is, I know you talked about the maintenance report, again, in communities. When it comes to like our stormwater system here and like sewer drainage and storm drainage, who's maintaining those on roads, for instance, that we don't necessarily own, like someone on Girard or on Wharf? Whose responsibility is that?
I believe is Wharf.
Wharf is a state road.
State, yeah.
Girard is a ghost road that we would maintain.
Yes, so.
And I only ask that because
State, yes.
I know there's been a lot of folks who've talked about just seeing like the difference when they've actually gone through and had someone come in and maintain those systems, just like how much debris and sediment is buried deep in there. And so, in hearing that you're talking of a maintenance report, wondering if we can see what that looks like to know when these drainage systems are being maintained, because, if we can see that something hasn't been upkept, for a year or so, we know to put that on our radar as we're talking about stormwater stuff.
Yeah, and that's part of that enforcement aspect of it, and
Right.
then in essence creating a program from prioritizing, what goes first, and then staff would work on that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor? Yes.
One last thing, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
I don't need a response. Just please check into it. It may be splitting hairs too far. On page 58, and it's 2.4.3. It says in there that the town of Bluffton may take such action as may be necessary to protect the public and make the BMP safe, and it goes on. I just asked the question, should may be changed to shall? That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else from council? Can move on.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next item we have is dealing with the mobile vending ordinance. This should go a little bit quicker than the design guideline. The mobile vending ordinance, we've had that in place for a couple years now. What we're looking to do is, initially we had it set up on the calendar year. And what we're looking to do is to change this to align with the business license calendar, which is May 1st through April 30th. And the concern that we've been receiving is that a lot of businesses, when they're coming in, they're having multiple, a license and a permit, but they're at different dates. So there's an overlap. There's confusion as to when this one is due and that one's due. And they want to, the goal is to align the two of them so that way we're streamlining it so that way they're almost tied together. So that way people can take care of their permit at the time of their business license. So we're looking to align those dates. Right now, in the ordinance itself, it says calendar year. So, and I think we provided a copy of there. It's just in essence scratched through and it aligns with business license date. The other one is updating language to take out DHEC and put in South Carolina Department of Agriculture since they split. This is the new the name of the department, so we're just updating our documents to make sure that it's aligned. One of them also is consideration of requiring the written permission for as public locations for school functions. As a mobile vendor, when you decide to go to a new place, we require that they just provide documentation to show that they are allowed to be at that location. So what it also does for us is that once we get that information, we're aware, code enforcement is aware that that person is allowed to be there. So we're just making sure that if there's going to be school functions, that they are allowed to be at those school functions. The other item is removing the language for the fire safety, and we put it in the documents to show that the fire marshal has stated that he has specific code language already set aside on the state level that addresses dealing with the mobile vendors, and that there's no need for us to have additional documentation when it's already addressed. Also, if there's any changes, any amendments to their code, we have designed so that way it's as amended. So anytime that there's a change to dealing with fire safety issues, it's automatically captured and he takes care of it. And then the last item we had, it was just dealing with the violations and penalties. As of right now, we don't have anything in place if there's a violator of provisions of what we can do. If you'd like to move forward with that, and I believe there's provided a copy of that in your report. Yes, sir.
Kevin, it's been brought to my attention that the town of Bluffton is the only municipality in Beaufort County or Jasper or Charleston County that charges separate mobile vending fee. Other municipalities charge a business license fee based on the gross income and the monthly or quarterly fees. So we like, in most things that we do, we always compare our neighbors to what we do. And we have done that somewhat. Sometimes I feel like it's not even fair because we usually use it when we are not apples to apples. But this one, I think we are apples to apples. If we are the only one that's charging it, why do we feel Bluffton mobile vendors should be at a disadvantage?
What we can do is work on that analysis. I can't remember completely. A couple years ago when we started the mobile vending, we probably did a comparison of all of them. But what we can do is go back and readdress it with and look through what other communities are doing, and then we can bring that to you. And if there's proposed changes, that's something that we can address. Now, the permit fee itself, that's in the master fee schedule. So if there are changes, then those changes for the fee amount would have to be updated through that process. But that's something that we can definitely look at and then bring back to you to compare and then determine how you want to move forward.
Thinking back, Fred, when this first came up, it seems like that may have been implemented because there were requirements of the locations that you could be. You know, you couldn't just stop on the side of the road. You had to be in you had had to be a certain distance from a brick and mortar food establishment. And I think that was a way to keep up.
200 feet is
You know,
from the
there was
window, yes.
Separate regulations that you had to have permission. You couldn't just pull up, or another food truck couldn't come to your place in my yard or whatever and just pull up there. And I'm not positive, but it seems like that
That might have been some of the justification for it.
business license gives you a permit to do business anywhere.
It was because, I know this
Remember that,
happened in
Brent?
2017, and it was primarily because we were the first to do it, so there weren't any other places that had fees set into place because it was something new to the area. So we were, and I'm saying we as in Bluffton, because I wasn't on council at the time, but we're going at it just at making a start of what, at the time, I'm assuming felt was comparable to the service being provided and the type of business, and hasn't been updated since 2017. And to Council Hamilton's point, that is correct in terms of the vending fee is separate from, they also have to pay, business license fee and whatever H-tax requirements based off of their revenue also.
Yes.
Let's look into that.
Yes, sir.
If we're the only one that's charging it, we shouldn't be doing that.
We can,
And just, I think it's an application fee.
yes.
And we'll double check and look, but we'll come back with the research on that.
Just a workshop.
While we're on the fee, just look into this, Kevin. I may be incorrect. I think that the short-term rentals paid a $350 fee, and these trucks are paying $400.
$400.
I never understood that. I mean, there's far more revenue generated from a VRBO than there is a food truck. So if you would please look into that as well.
Absolutely. We can totally do that. Okay. What-
And
So,
one
yes, ma'am.
last question or comment, Kevin. I do have a concern there with one of the items you mentioned, item C, about the consideration of school functions and having that written communication. It would make sense if it's advance notice, but I do know that sometimes if a school reaches out to, like, let's say they had a last-minute cancellation, my concern there is, are we able to put in some type of provision if that happens, knowing that it's going to be other moving parts in terms of they're going to have to communicate that to our business department, as well as get whatever communication from that school's person in charge who's ever doing that. So I wouldn't want it to be an impediment if they're trying to provide something there for the school that's kind of out of their control.
Understood. Yeah, and again, that's something that, it's a consideration, so we'll make sure to do a little bit more research on that, and then when we bring this back, if that's something that you want to include, you can either include it or not include it.
I agree with that. It seems like that's an extra layer, because first of all, if the school didn't invite you to be there, they'd run you off. So,
Very true.
you know what I mean?
Especially our schools, especially Gifford County schools.
Okay. Okay, so as of right now, if you don't mind, from a process standpoint, we'll look to bring this back at first reading for November, and then December. These are our anticipated dates. I would say that we'll look through this. We shouldn't have any issues to be able to get this taken care of and get it back in front of you next month. Okay?
Thank you.
Great. And then the last item that I have is dealing specifically with the short-term rental. Again, it was the alignment with the business license. Right now, it's on calendar year. We'd like to just align that with the business license calendar, which is that May 1st through April 30th. And then again, the consideration of the violations of if you have any violations, that we actually have an enforcement and penalties in place. So, and just if town council is willing to move forward with that, we have it on the same schedule of bringing this back in front of you in November for a first reading and a second and final in December.
Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, that's all you have. That's enough.
Very good. Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Up next, we have this is a workshop item, agenda item anyway.
proposed amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinance to include regulations addressing abandoned and moored boats in the town's waterways. Ms. Heather?
Okay, you're doing it, that's why. Okay, thank you. So I'm here tonight to present to you a proposed ordinance and ask your consideration if you would like to move forward with us to continue to research this and bring this forward to you. But an ordinance that would be included in our municipal code of ordinances that addresses abandoned boats and moored boats and vessels in the town's waterways. So here's the purpose of why we would do this, or why we've been asked by others, which I'll get to, as far as why is this an issue, is this an issue? So anytime that there's an abandoned boat or debris or whatever you want to call it in our waterways, there is the potential for illicit discharge, fuel leakage, lead. It's just an obstacle and could, present a safety issue. Here's the snippet of the state law. There is a state law that does address abandoned boats and vehicles, or excuse me, not vehicles, vessels. And here's just a little bit more on that topic. So really how this started was we were requested to attend a meeting with our local representatives as well as staff from the Department of Natural Resources. And also they extended that invitation to Beaufort County as well. So the purpose of this meeting was an educational meeting. What is an abandoned vessel? What does the state have jurisdiction over? What does that include? What's their process? And then also to elaborate on what are the challenges that they're facing. And it's pretty basic. Their challenges, they have a large area, a jurisdictional area that they have to cover, limited staff and resources, and lots of other regulations that they have to enforce. So what they found is that other municipalities within the state have adopted local regulations to supplement it, to partner, to basically reinforce that ordinance. There are many of our partners also have local ordinances. Hilton Head Island has one. I believe City of Beaufort and also Port Royal. Those are a little bit newer. So what DNR did is they presented examples of Georgetown and some other communities that have sort of worked out the kinks, so to speak, and have them for quite a period of time. So the question was then, is this really an issue in the town of Bluffton, or are we just creating, another ordinance, and is this an issue? Well, DNR gave us the coordinates for the abandoned boats that they had on record, and 8 out of the 9 are within our limits. This map here shows those 8 locations and those boats. So what the proposed amendments are that we've basically, at this point, we've simply kind of filled in how the town of Bluffton could use some of these ordinances. So we'd still, if council so chooses and directs staff, we'd obviously keep looking at that in more detail and make sure that it fits our specific needs. But in general, what the ordinance does is it addresses the seizure and disposal of the abandoned boats. And this, from what DNR has told us, is the biggest thing that we can help partner with. So basically start that clock, start that notification, and get that process rolling. Outlines the policies, procedures, the violations and penalties, what happens if they don't act, the owner of the boat does not act, that administration and enforcement. And then also in addition to that, another thing that was brought up that's specific, I think, well, a little bit more specific to the town of Bluffton, is the mooring of boats. So an abandoned boat is a boat, and I may get this a little bit wrong or miss some of it, but in general, you need to have a horn, lights, your registration, there may be some more, but, and that makes it, if you don't have those in place, it's an abandoned boat. It's, so to speak. Like I said, I'm sure I'm missing a couple more technicalities. But then there are boats that are legally moored out in the water. So they have their horn, they have their lights, they have their registration. And they're supposed to leave a channel. And that channel is so that there's safe passage of other vehicles, or other boats and users of the waterway. What in Bluffton, legally it may meet that requirement. However, we want to make sure that for recreational uses that it is protected. So if you met the state law for that mooring distance, is that still appropriate for the town of Bluffton? Do we need something a little bit wider? Because if you're on a tube or a ski or a wakeboard, is there a potential for safety? So that's one of the things. I will also say that we did discuss this with the town attorney, Richardson LaBruce, and we do, from what we've drafted now and looking at all the ordinances, we are legally justifiable to move forward with an ordinance. The way we've interpreted our municipal limits is appropriate, and that is interpreted and mapped correctly. And again, if we move forward, we will continue to work forward with legal to make sure that everything does align, does meet state law and their ordinances as well as our ordinances.
Heather,
Yes, sir.
so in this example, even if they lie outside the boundary of the town, this is where Beaufort County would kick in.
Yep, and I will get to that. So with that, at that meeting, the administrator of Beaufort County was in attendance, as well as a county council member. They are moving forward with considering this. I've been talking with their county staff, and what we would like to do is partner and align. So have similar ordinances so that we can partner together. They are not as far along in the process as ours. They are, however, they hope to have it to one of their committees in later October, possibly November. My recommendation would be that we align those dates if they do move forward so that we can then partner with enforcement procedures, whether it's an agreement that the county enforces or how we work together. Because as you can tell, you could simply, the wind could be pretty gusty that day and you go into Beaufort County's jurisdiction, or vice versa, then you enter the town's jurisdiction. So the idea is, yes, to partner with the county and come up with something that's similar.
And any of this has to be supported at the state level. People seem to forget that the state owns all the water. It might be in Beaufort County or Hilton Head or whatever, but it's still owned by the people of the state of South Carolina, all of it. It's getting out of hand, and we do need to do something, and I'm totally support trying to work through this, but it is a mess.
Agree.
There's a lot of legal stuff that has to be addressed, and no need for us to pass something that's not going to hold up in the court of law. And then we have to consider too, anything that people, if we say it's abandoned, then we have to have the funding to get rid of it, which is boats like these that are being unattended. I'm not saying they're abandoned, but they're unattended. It's a lot to it, but it's growing. I've seen it grow. It's doubled, I guess, in the last year or year and a half, and they're need to do something. So.
And I will also say that at that meeting, the DNR staff was there. They're very receptive to reviewing our ordinance if this moves forward and helping in any way they can. And they also, their attorney was also at that meeting. So we would certainly make sure that all that's buttoned up.
Question. Larry brought up another thought for my question too, but what does seizure and disposal look like?
I don't know exactly what that looks like, but from what I understand and talking with DNR is they essentially take that boat out of the water and I think legally right now they have to keep it for a period of time, but they could crush it, sell it, all sorts of things.
Do we have the capacity to store those vessels?
Maybe not on our own, but we would hope with partnership with Beaufort County that we would.
And are we looking to establish another budget line to destroy or dispose of these vessels?
We might have to bring that forward as part of this, but we can certainly find out what others have
Still
included
a lot of
in their
moving
budget.
parts, right?
Mhm. It is. This really is just
There's state funds available at certain times for these type of things. Where they'll, you can actually deliver them and they'll foot the bill up to a certain amount. That's what I would suggest if we get to that point with any of these, then hopefully we can get the county and the state to handle that expense, or most of it.
And what I could do, if this does move forward, bring you some examples, talk with those other communities that have local ordinances, and what is their budget, what have they spent?
And I think it's,
Have
like
some
you
more
said, I
numbers
think
for
it's really important that we be in unison with the county.
Yeah.
And just for those who don't realize why or what's going on here, as most people should know, dock space in a marina these days is very expensive. It's kind of like renting an apartment, you know, a two-bedroom apartment, $1,000, $2,000 a month would be in line for some of these vessels. So what's happened, some owners had a boat, don't care about it anymore. So then the next thing you know, they give the boat to someone who really probably shouldn't have a boat because they don't have as much money as the person that just gave it away. So they don't have a place to put it, so they anchor it. They celebrate that they've got a boat, and then boom, the real boat world kicks in and they say, oh, this costs too much and that costs too much. So the boat ends up sitting there. And it's, you know, some sink, some pop and end up in the trees. But that's where they come from. You know, these aren't boats that are being used periodically or anything. They're just, for the most part, just blocking up the river.
I will also add quickly that I should have added this before. The other issue is that post-storm, that boats, if they are pulled away or somehow lost, so to speak, and someone doesn't have the means to get them back into their dock or their marina, this is when DNR needs our support, because theoretically that boat could become abandoned and the owner doesn't retrieve it, doesn't have the means to retrieve it, may not even know it's gone. So it's also something that would help support DNR in any kind of storm recovery as well.
Sure.
Anything else?
I believe Town Attorney had something to say.
I was just going to add that under the law, the state will only give municipalities and local governments the ability to adopt an ordinance that goes into like the May River, the New River, as long as it strictly follows what the state has already adopted for the state. So the ultimate ordinance is going to be very consistent with what Beaufort County, City of Port Royal, and other local jurisdictions do, but also be consistent completely with what DNR expects. So it's one of those, this is one of the few areas where the town of Bluffton has jurisdiction beyond the low water mark of the river. It goes all the way to the middle of the channel.
On certain issues.
Just on very, very limited issues involving watercraft. Anything else is state or county.
Right. That's why we had the issues where we couldn't enforce boating violations.
Absolutely.
Still can't without special permission.
That's why there's those intergovernmental agreements with Beaufort County and with the state. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So I will continue to work on this and answer some of those questions and be back before you.
No, I think good, move
Yep.
forward.
Good. Okay, up next, we got a public hearing and final reading amendments to the Bluffton Town's Municipal Code Ordinance, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Zoning Districts, and Article 5, Design Standards to establish a plan unit development district for Bluffton Village and related standards, and to add Appendix A to include the master plan, building, and sign standards from the soon-to-expire Bluffton Village Development Agreement. So this is a public hearing.
Yes, sir. You can call for.
Do I call now? Okay. First call for public comment on this agenda item. Second call for public comment. Third call for public comment. I see none comments. We're closed. Public hearing is closed.
Thank you. There are no changes from first reading. I'm available to either go through the presentation, answer any questions you may have, but I do have a suggested motion for you.
Yeah, you took too long last time.
I used all my allotted time, so.
I'm happy
Any
to make the
discussion?
motion.
No?
Do we make-
Questions or discussion?
No, I was going to say I'm happy to go ahead and make this
Is
motion.
there a motion? Yes.
Yes, I move to approve the amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Unified Development Ordinance, Article 4, Zoning Districts, and Article 5, Design Standards to establish a planned unit development district for Bluffton Village and related standards, and to add Appendix A to include the master plan, building, and sign standards from the soon-to-expire Bluffton Village Development Agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Good job.
Great,
That's
thank you.
unanimous. Up next, we have consideration of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2025 budget to provide for expenditures of certain funds.
Mayor, you
And-
skipped one.
Where? What is it? Oh, I'd already flipped it. Sorry about that. Consideration of an ordinance authorizing a lease agreement with Bright Beginnings Academy LLC to provide a child care facility within a town-owned property. Mr. Chris Forrester.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we are talking about a potential child care lease for what will be a new building that's town-owned. So just to go over the process, the history of this project. This goes back 2 years, pretty much, to when we first were looking to recruit a business for the town-owned property at Buckwalter around the police station. We had a prospect that was codenamed Comida at the time. They were proposing a new food manufacturing facility. As part of that was a child care facility that they were going to bring with us. They ended up backing out of negotiations. The site didn't work for them. And in April of 2023, we ended up publishing our own RFP for a public-private partnership in Buckwalter. As you all know, we identified that private partner, and we are developing those 4.7 acres. And as part of that, we requested that they include a child care component to the proposal. In October of 23, you all approved that, and in March of 24, we released the RFP for child care operators. In June, we received 3 proposals. The committee did an initial blind review and screening of those proposals, and then the top 2 applicants presented to an expanded committee of myself, Mr. Steves, Mr. Nellums, Latoya Salters, and Lisa Solka. The building, as part of the public-private partnership that will transfer back to the town, will be operated by DRCI, and with the goal of promoting business development within the town of Bluffton business owners, but also to attract new businesses to the area. And just as a reminder, the overall mission to provide small business development to innovators, startups, and early-stage businesses, and the vision to enhance economic vitality and diversity and dynamism of the region. And ultimately, we also passed an economic development ordinance to promote high-need services within Bluffton in key areas. And as part of that, one of the business services that we identified was childcare. This is a quick look at the space outlined in red. It's about 3,000 square feet that will be dedicated for childcare use. As part of the review, the committee ranked the proposals on these criteria set out here. Obviously, knowledge of state regulations is key, and experience in child care training and education. Also, a focus on small business operation. We were trying to, as I mentioned, DRCA's mission just to promote small businesses and Bluffton-owned businesses. We also have a small local preference, MBE preference, and then a preference for affiliates with DRCI, since this is a DRCI project. These are the average scores. Candidate 1, Bright Beginnings Academy, came out on top with 81 in the average score. The committee, because the first and second scores were so close, we did recommend to have those 2 present to a larger stakeholder group, which we did, and the ultimate final committee recommendation stuck with Bright Beginnings Academy. And this was also presented to the DRCI board August 8th of 2024, and they passed a recommendation to you all, and their letter was in the packet tonight as well. So a little bit about Bright Beginnings Academy. This is a solely owned business by Akila Aiken. It's a little bit about her background. She has a great deal of experience in childcare and social services, but most recently she works as property manager. The overall mission and vision of the company aligns with the DRCI mission to promote Bluffton-owned startup businesses. There's thorough business planning and a strong knowledge of the industry and regulatory framework that we're dealing with. And she's currently working with business coaches. The projected employees, once fully operational, is around 8. And she's seeking startup funding from CommunityWorks of $60,000 and also applying for a success grant from Pomodoro Shared Services Alliance. A little bit about what's included in the agreement. Obviously, DRCI's responsibility is to lease the 3,000 square feet that will be upfitted for child care space, provide a small outdoor play area. Ultimately, that's not transportable, so we agreed to install that because if it ever changes hands, she obviously wouldn't be able to take that with her, so we agreed to install that ourselves. And then to provide startup mentoring and programming through DRCI throughout the engagement. This business obviously has to secure the loan, provide all the equipment and supplies, and comply with all regulatory requirements. The current proposal has a $12 per square foot, and I'll explain a little bit about what the town is getting in return for that. It's a 5-year lease with a 5-year option, and we'll go over her requirements in exchange for that lower per square foot lease. So one of the goals that we also had was to provide not only childcare, but also childcare to lower income families within the Bluffton community. So we've requested, and currently she has agreed to set aside a certain number of seats at different thresholds. So below 80% AMI, there's eight seats, and she would agree to only accept the state voucher. And then between 80 and 100% AMI, reserve of 7 seats. And for those families, she would accept the state voucher and then the difference between the market rate and the voucher up to a $200 cap. And then the rest of the seats will be at a market rate of about $225 per week. So those are the terms, recommendations, and do you have any questions?
Start with you, Bridget. Any questions for him?
Not at the time, no.
Mr. Wood?
I just want to say I'm proud of this, what we're accomplishing here as a council. We've taken on many endeavors over the years to try to make the community better, and from housing to all kinds of other issues. And childcare is at the top of the list. If you can't afford childcare, you can't work, and you can't afford housing. So anyway, I'm proud what we are doing with this model. With your help, thank you very much.
Mr. Hamilton?
I'm also in favor of working with Ms. Aiken to give a better quality of life to our employers, our communities, especially where early child education is important, and I like to make sure that this be a working document to make sure that this partnership is not only successful for the town, but also successful for Ms. Aiken. So, I noticed that we have a opportunity to add $2 per year increase, but let's make sure that that doesn't put her out of business.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, as part of that relationship, she will be working with our DRCI coaches through that program and making sure that we're tracking key business indicators, so it will be an ongoing relationship.
I think you've done a great job with this. Obviously, affordable daycare is something we really need, and so great job to you, and I'm excited for Ms. Aiken for this. I know it was a rigorous application process and it seems like y'all picked the right person, so I'm excited about that. I do just have a couple questions. One, is the reduced fee spots, those 15 spots, for the duration of the lease, including any extensions?
It is, yes.
Okay. And then just I don't know if this is a comment or a question, but I didn't know, with the lease, I read through it, and if she sells her business or any part of her business, I would love to see something in the lease, put in the lease where it comes back to council. Just, I feel like the application process was so rigorous, and when you look at the criteria, it was really because of who she is. And so if she were to sell that business or have a part or whole, I would like to see that brought back to council would be my.
Yes, I think that's a reasonable concern, and we'll work with legal counsel to add a clause in there to ensure that it comes back to us for consideration if that ownership stake should ever change in any way.
Okay, thank you. And then, I hate to ask this question but as a landlord, I always think you have to think worst case. If in case of default, what happens with the lease? I don't think I noticed that there was any kind of guarantees in there. Is that correct?
Of her default, of the business default? Would you like to?
So the lease is drafted. Councilwoman Burton does not have any personal guarantees for payment or performance. It's something that we can consider and discuss with the prospective tenant if council is inclined to go that route.
I think that's a worthy question. If, we want her to succeed and we're making every attempt to help her do so. But again, worst case scenario, if she did default, if there's no mechanism there, it needs to be addressed.
The mechanism for a lease default would be eviction at this point. It's a breach of contract, and you could get damages against the tenant as well as evicting them from the facility.
Got it. I just want to clarify that the motion today still allows the town manager leeway to make small negotiations in between first and second reading. So we would be able to address those between now and the second reading of it.
I'd also like to note, Chris, just echoing the sentiments of what my colleagues have already stated. It's always known when you go into business, you have to have a contingency plan of what ifs, you never know what would happen. And while it will be that possibility that, there could be a default or what have you there, I don't know if it was mentioned here, but it would be great to highlight that there is something in terms of this isn't just something that the town is doing with a program like this to check off a list, but we are invested in our local business owners, small businesses, the Don Ryan Center, and programs aimed to provide needs where we currently do have deficiencies. And so the effort will be made to work alongside or to ensure this business owner has what they need for a program that we're touting, because, her failure essentially would be one on ours too. So every effort on our part is going to be to make sure we can do what we can to ensure that she is successful in this program, because we like to model this in other areas if we can too.
I agree with everybody. I think any concerns about default or any of that, that's just legal wording in the lease, which would be in everybody's lease. I'm sure it would have probably been in there anyway, whether it was suggested or not. I do want to make a point that I have a bunch of grandkids, and I'm telling you, it's not just affordable child care. It's child care, period. There are a lot of people that, even if you had the money to pay, there's waiting lists for months. So it's an occupation that is so needed in our community so that our young people can get back in the workplace and prosper, and advance their careers and support the rest of our economy. So I think it's a great idea, and if somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make that motion. I make a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the town manager to enter into a commercial lease agreement with the owner and operator of curriculum-based child care facility at a reduced rental rate, so long as the commercial lease agreement does not materially differ from what was presented herein.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. And Next, on the 17th is the groundbreaking for the new facility, so hope you all, to see you all there.
And I don't know if y'all all know Miss Aiken, but she's present if she wanted to stand up and y'all could see who's going to be running the facility.
Yep. Pulling for you.
Awesome.
Yeah. We're all on the same team. So. Okay, up next, we have consideration of an ordinance amending to the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2025 budget to provide for the expenditures of certain funds and allocate sources of revenue for the said funds to carry over unspent expenditures and encumbrances from the 2024 budget to the 2025 budget. Second reading, Ms. Natalie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is second and final reading of the budget amendment. There have been no changes from the first reading. I'm happy to go through the presentation if you have any questions, but there have been no changes.
I'm happy to see your motion.
There you go.
Any discussion?
It has to be Kevin's time.
Any questions from council?
I have a question, more so a comment for one of the items there on the budget. I believe it is for a software item. I know we all voted on it. I'm in agreement with it. I think it's needed, but I have a question of if it's going to be used in conjunction at any point with our Law Enforcement Advisory Board and with our public in terms of, are there items there to be able to workshop once we approve it? That's the Lexipol software for the PD.
So Chief can answer those questions on exactly what all Lexipol entails.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Councilwoman Frazier, I'll describe what Lexipol does, and I don't know if I'll be able, if I answered your question. If not, then let me know. But Lexipol is what they're going to do is they are a program software that overlooks all of our policies and procedures. It's a long, drawn-out process. What we have to do is we have to send them all of our policies one by one, and they will compare them. They will look at them from a legal standpoint and compare them to national standards, and then they will provide their recommendations for any changes made. From there on out, anytime that there is case law, state law, national law that affects any type of policies, they will send us an update to those policies, and we will make those policies. They also they will send out weekly trainings to our officers to make sure that our officers are reading these policies and that they understand them. And the only way that these officers will be able to answer these questions is if they read through the policies themselves.
Thank you, Chief, for answering that, providing some clarification there on that. I've always been a huge advocate for community policing when it works. I've seen the advantages of it and the disadvantages when it's not being used. I raise that question just because the concern is always when things are standardized, and I know that Lexipol is used in many other jurisdictions across the country, and probably is like one of the largest growing ones in that regard. But there are some things where we have an advisory board, and I know we get public input on, some of our more basic ordinances. I think for policing and some of the policies where it would be nice to have citizens weigh in on some things. If there's an opportunity to have that engagement, I would encourage to use that even with this particular program, just because there is a history sometimes in policing that does not always speak to the needs of community, and every community isn't the same. Each community has different things. And so with that, with Lexipol and some of the things that I've seen with them, I would admonish that if we are going to use this software, let's also bring the community in to be able to weigh in, and our Law Enforcement Advisory Board to weigh in on some of those, the policies, if we're trying to make, substantial change here.
Absolutely, and we've had a policy review committee established since January, and anytime we make a change to policy, we bring it forth to the Law Enforcement Citizens Advisory Committee for their recommendations. Sometimes we'll bring them back, make the corrections, or they may approve it, and then we advance it forward. We'll do the same with Lexipol. As they provide recommendations for changes, we'll make those changes and we'll present it to the Law Enforcement Citizens Advisory.
It'd be nice to see some of those items to workshop, because I know the advisory committee is aware and we get it through your report, but sometimes the community is lost in that translation too, where they may not be aware of what those updates are and what changes and things happen. So if we could incorporate all of everyone on that, I think would be great.
Yes, ma'am. And one other thing that we're working, I tasked Miss Edie with, is we are looking to publicize all of our policies. And so if somebody wants to get a copy of our policy, all they have to do is go to our website. They can look up whatever policy they want, and they can access it anywhere they have computer access. So it'll be available to all the public.
Thank you.
Any questions from anyone? So, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor. I make a motion to approve the second and final reading of an ordinance amending the Town of Bluffton fiscal year 2025 budget to provide for the expenditures of certain funds, commit additional funds to the Capital Asset Reserve Fund, and to allocate sources of revenue for the said funds to carry over unspent expenditures and encumbrances from the fiscal 2024 budget to the fiscal 2025 budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or other?
Thank you.
Okay, we move on to our consent agenda items. Is there anything on here?
Yes, I need to pull the police chief report off the agenda item, please.
Okay, so we're going to pull off the, where's it at here? Next page? Oh, right here. Okay, so we're going to pull this off. Do we go ahead and approve the rest of it, right?
Right.
You can go ahead and approve the rest of consent agenda and then deal with this one directly.
So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the Bluffton Police Department report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Chief,
Yes, sir.
public comment tonight needs some clarity. Can you address some of those questions or concerns for me?
For as far as flock cameras?
Right.
Yes, sir. We are working on a policy right now. Flock Camera sent us a policy that they received from another department, and so we are in a rough copy of that now. That policy is very restrictive on what we can and cannot do with the use of those cameras. We will not have access. These cameras are not to keep an eye on people, it's to track vehicles when a crime is committed. For us to actually get into the system and actually search, you have to put in the case number and the name of the person that is searching, and it has to be for investigative purposes only. Whenever they also offer, when there's I guess you could say when a car is on a hot list, whether it means it was stolen or is used in a crime, it'll get put into this system. Now, Flock only records or keeps recordings of these systems for 30 days. After 30 days, they disappear or they get deleted from the system, so we don't not have access to that after 30 days. Does that answer your question, or?
So, so these are not cameras that someone from the police department or anyone can just access without permission?
So the way they work, yes and no. There are two different type of cameras. The ALPRs, if a vehicle goes through one of these cameras where we have the ALPRs placed, which is mostly through the entrances of our town and some of the main roadways, if a car goes through there and it's stolen or something like that, it'll send an alert to our officers on their phone or on their computer. Part of the policy, though, is that just because they get an alert does not give them probable cause to stop the vehicle. They still have to get behind the vehicle, they still have to run the license plate, and they have to make sure that it's valid through DMV, that the vehicle is still listed as stolen or whatever before they conduct that traffic stop. So a mere hit that an officer gets from these ALPRs or from the flock cameras does not give them sole responsibility or sole justification to stop that car.
What's the difference between this camera and the one that you're currently using? Because I know there's times when we know that.
Tag reader.
Yeah, the tag reader. What's the difference?
So they're both the same thing. Flock does sell other cameras that are basically what we have now in downtown. They just view and give you a live action view, and we have some of those ordered as well. So it's kind of a combination of both. But these just record vehicles coming and going, license plates coming and going, and if there's something that is within the system and sends them a hit, then we will get a hit. When we're doing our investigation and we go back and pull information from these cameras, it will just show us a picture of the car that drove by.
So these will not be able to monitor somebody playing in the yard or having a cookout or?
Some of the cameras do record as far as, I guess, motion cameras, but the majority of the cameras that we're getting in phase one are all ALPR. They do not record like somebody walking down the street or something like that. It's more for vehicle purposes. It's kind of an AI for vehicles. So if I'm looking for a vehicle that, say if a victim tells us that there was a red vehicle with a blue bumper sticker, we can type in red vehicle, blue bumper sticker and see wherever it came up on our cameras.
Thank you.
I have a question on that too, Chief. So you said in order to access it, you do need to have a case number, but if a car is on a hot list, you're able to access that. Is a case number required for a car to be placed on a hot list?
Yes, anytime you enter something into a hot list, you have to have a case number, and once again, the individual that entered it, their name will be attached to that.
And do you foresee, or is there some type of mitigation in place in terms of the training you're going to require your officers to undertake before this equipment is doled out or installed?
Yes, ma'am, we're going to do 2 different types of training. Flock camera is going to come down and show us how to properly operate this equipment, as well as what to do when they receive a hit and the requirements. But we're also going to do some training over the policy and the requirements of it. If they don't adhere to policy, then there'll be disciplinary procedures for that.
And going off of remembering one of the things from public comment, will there be considerations also of training more so in looking at how we would reduce or mitigate instances of profiling, even though there's a measure you said there that would prevent that? We know that we can't always ensure 100% fidelity with anything. Will there be some type of implementation to ensure that doesn't happen, that people do not abuse this software for the purposes of targeting or profiling some of the numbers that we heard earlier, which were quite alarming?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, one thing that we've kind of started this past month is I want my guys to police with a purpose. I don't want them just driving around stopping whatever car they feel like stopping. We have to have a purpose behind what we're doing. And so every month now we are setting up goals, and it's based upon the data that's presented to us. Sometimes that data will be based upon complaints of high speeds in certain areas. Sometimes that data will be determined based upon high accidents in particular areas. That's going to be our main focus of where our traffic stops will be occurring. Take, for example, this past month, Patrol has been tasked with doing a lot of traffic stops on New Riverside because we have received a lot of complaints of mostly high school kids and things like that speeding up and down New Riverside Drive. So our main goal for this month is going to be focused over in that area. That's also one thing that CPS recommended, to try to work on this, on our bias-based profiling and bias-based patrol stopping of vehicles, is rather than just go randomly out there stopping vehicles, we have to have a purpose behind our traffic stops, where we're doing most of our traffic stops, and why. And so our main thing is to reduce the amount of traffic accidents that we're experiencing every year. And so we're going to utilize that data as well as information from our community to focus on those areas with traffic stops.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Anything else from council for Chief on this matter?
Thank you.
So when we pull that off, do we need to,
You need to approve it separately, so if,
so we need a motion to, is there a motion to approve the police department
Monthly
for this
report.
month?
Consent agenda, yes. I'll make that motion.
You gotta state the motion, right?
you're
No,
good.
I think you're good.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous.
And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Very
good.
Complete horror.
So you must want to be here.